31. And then we can just note when Trustee Warren joins us, because I know he's on his way. So Tyler, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Trustee Arndorfer.
Here.
Trustee Bockhorst.
Here.
Trustee Ursink.
Here.
Trustee Baldoff.
Here.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Here.
Trustee Warren, not present. And then President McKay.
Here. Thank you. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, thank you and welcome everyone to this special meeting for the Village Board. I thank you in advance for your time, your service, and your patience as we move through the agenda this evening. As I said, I believe Trustee Warren will be joining us tonight. The next item on our agenda, I believe, is citizens to be heard. Is that correct? Yes. Yep.
I believe, yeah, the item's not on the agenda, correct?
Yes. This item is for matters not on the agenda, and discussion may follow comment on non-agenda items, or discussion and action may come at a future meeting. I believe Mr. Carlson was registered to speak under citizens to be heard this evening.
Yes. Did I go ahead?
Yes.
So Chuck Carlson, 26. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 2606 East Olive Street. I'm a member of the Police Commission. I was appointed in May of 2020. So I've been on the commission for 15 months. An indisputable responsibility of the Police Commission in Shorewood is to hire the chief of police. And while it will be essential for the Police Commission to gather community input on that hire, it is the 5 commissioners who will ultimately decide which candidate will be selected for overseeing public safety in this community. The Police Commission is solely responsible for appointing our new police chief. That appointment must reflect the values of the entire community. The Village of Shorewood has invested in and embraced equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the Police Commission must be a diverse and inclusive body in order to hire a chief who shares these values. Recently, President McKay passed on the opportunity to appoint a Black woman applicant, Michelle Waite, to the Police Commission. On Thursday night, President McKay appeared before the Human Relations Commission to further explain why the timing of Michelle's application did not allow President McKay to appoint Michelle, despite Michelle's clear qualifications for the position. Michelle's application for the Police Commission is still open and valid. Having a woman of color be not only a voice in the community, but to serve as one of 5 decision makers in the hiring of the new chief would be a giant step forward in determining how public safety is equitably approached in Shorewood. In order to remove the barrier of timing and allow President McKay to appoint Michelle to the Police Commission, I have submitted my resignation from the Police Commission to the village president and the village manager with immediate effect. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for your time and service. Are there other citizens to be heard this evening on matters not on the agenda? I am not seeing any hands. Do you see any hands, Tyler?
There's a Stephanie. I apologize, I can't see her last name, but she's wishing to speak.
Spakuza. I just had a question too, kind of piggybacking on last meeting. Was I know we had talked about potentially increasing the commission's ability, and that we need some signatures, but is there a process to be made available online or something like that in order to complete those steps for increasing Police Commission oversight?
Thank you for your question, Stephanie. I guess I would ask that you, if you could send an email, then I could direct it to the appropriate staff person or to the appropriate website link. Other than if there's any staff on the call on the meeting tonight that has a quick answer to that, typically we don't enter into discussion under citizens to be heard, but we can take requests and respond.
I am the only staff on the call, but Stephanie, I'd be happy to connect with you tomorrow somehow to go through that. So if you just want to write down my phone number, I'll give it to you real quickly so you have that. If you want to give me a call tomorrow, I'll be happy to help you.
That would be
My
great.
direct, if you do have something to write down real quick,
Yes.
my direct line is 414-847-2705.
You said 414-847-2705?
That's correct.
Okay, and then I was also wondering too, in terms of increasing community engagement for those positions of police commissioners now and in the future, as well as other village board committees.
Yeah, so is that a question for me?
Or whoever, how would we go about moving forward with getting more community input in those decisions? Because obviously all the different committees and board as a whole represent, I know the board we voted on, but in terms of other committees, because they're the ones speaking for the community, and is there a way that community members can have more input in all those areas?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess what I would say is that we are always looking for suggestions from the community about how to make that process more inclusive. And so it's really upon all of us to bring those suggestions forward. It's always good to submit them in writing. And I also think that that's something that we can ask the HRC to host a discussion on if they're willing to agendacize that. And then it's also our Judiciary Personnel and Licensing Committee that looks at that process. So it's really on a lot of different levels. And I did hear loud and clear last week that request to make that move, especially for the Police Commission, because it hasn't been.
Okay, and who would one contact to request those things? Would that be you?
Sure, if you send me an email, we can, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I should say it's not necessarily, I appreciate the opportunity to collaborate on that moving forward. I don't have a timeline and I don't have a switch to move, but please send me the email and we'll get it going.
And President McKeag.
Thank
And
you.
also let you know what we've done in the past. Mm-hmm. Yes, Trustee Bockhorst?
I was just going to say that, of course, anyone is also welcome to email me as the JPNL chair. But so I appreciate these comments and look forward to receiving these emails. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Ms. Pucuz, I should also remind you that the committee meetings, the citizen committees, they are open to the public. And so, other than not, the people that are appointed have a vote for the matters at hand. However, the public can participate in those meetings. So I do encourage that. I think Trustee Stokebrand had her hand up.
I was just trying to confirm or clarify what Ms. Pacuza was looking for in terms of gathering signatures.
Point of parliamentary procedure, though, I think the president asked for an email, so we will get all that information and then we can respond accordingly. So maybe, Ann, you could forward that on to everyone. I'd like to get on our meeting.
I would like to hear from Ms. Pacuza about what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
At the last meeting, it was something about we needed to collect a certain amount. I think it was 50 some odd community member signatures in order to move forward with increasing the police commission's ability to act to the fullest of their abilities. Because right now we have them at just a limited capacity, but then there's this other additional capacity that they could carry out other duties but we need signatures in order to request that. And unless I'm wrong on that, but that's what I remember hearing.
Okay, that's why I'm asking the question, because I think the point here is if we wanted to add the optional powers to our police commission, I believe that takes a referendum.
Mhm.
So that would have to go before the village, all the residents of the village. And so it'd be a referendum procedure, and that would be, I'd be shocked if that was only 50 signatures. I think that would be a bigger, I think the bar would be higher, but I think that's what you're requesting then is the signatures necessary to require a referendum vote on whether our police commission should have additional powers. And I think according to state code, it's called the optional powers.
I'd like a point of parliamentary procedure. We're getting off topic. I understand this is citizens to be heard. And we also, so we have a process here. We have a full agenda, Kathy. All of this can be handled and all of this. So can we please move on with our agenda?
Trustee Stokebrand, did you complete your thought?
I did.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I appreciate Assistant Manager Burkhart for offering to help Ms. Spikuza tomorrow, and he can direct you to the instructions. I believe some of that information was included in the slides that we received that were presented to us on August 2nd as well. All right. Any other citizens that would like to be heard during this period?
Michelle Waite has her hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wade?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry I was late to the meeting, but I did have a couple of comments based on the materials that were presented for this meeting and concerns to raise. So it looks like there is a potential intent to usurp the RFP process in order to appoint Attorney Zach that spoke at the last meeting on August 2nd. I think it was very clear from everyone that was at that meeting, from the questions that were asked and the responses that were made, that there was a bias. There was a clear bias in terms of his position on how commissions and the chief should operate within that commission. So to want to usurp that process, to simply appoint him instead of identifying maybe stronger candidates that could stand in the gap of the community in order to really position us in a place to secure a chief who will move this community forward, I think would be a very horrible idea for the village to make today. Also, I had a question around if the consultation of Senator Taylor will be taken. I know she extended her offer of support in the whole process, and I'm unsure if her support was reached out for, or what was the status of that based on her presenting that at the August 2nd meeting.
Yes, that is on my list to schedule a meeting with her office. And I have not done that yet, but it is my intention to do so. Thank you for following up.
Yeah, I think before making a move on usurping the RFP process, pulling her in would be expedient.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other comments?
No, that's it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else who needs to be heard this evening? Are there any other hands? I'm not seeing it. Okay. Thank you very much. And Trustee Warren has joined us, so please note that in the minutes. Okay, moving on to the next item. It is item 5A, consider Atwater Beach Lifeguard Service Agreement for 2022 to 2024. I'm going to hand this over to Tyler.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for being present. I know initially we didn't have a scheduled meeting for tonight. I think we had some pressing issues that we wanted to make sure that we talked about. So I just want to thank everyone for taking time tonight to be here for the meeting. The first agenda item that we have is on Atwater Beach lifeguards. We just yesterday finished the 2021 season. I just wanted to thank Eric Kitson and all the lifeguards who were present this year to provide services. It's been 4 years that we've been working with Coastline Services, and really thankful that Eric Kitson was able to step up when Milwaukee County Parks ended their agreement with us. And it's been great to be able to utilize them. As you know, about 6 months ago or so, Eric Kitson announced that this would be his last year providing lifeguard services. So we decided we wanted to start an RFP process, knowing that we didn't know a whole lot of other entities that would be out there that could provide such services. It also gave us an ability to identify a potential budget number that we could use for the 2022 budget line item. So we sent out the RFP, reached out to a number of different entities who could potentially provide the service. USA Management came in with the only proposal to the village. And that proposal is proposed service agreement, and contract language is in your packet for tonight for consideration. In full transparency, there was a few things that USA Management provided that are options. And as staff, in reviewing with USA Management, we came to a conclusion that we felt the board would be most content with for tonight. For instance, for lifeguard services, when they hired the lifeguards, they give the option of what to hire the wage at, ranging from $10 to $15 per hour. Coastline Services hires all their lifeguards at $15 an hour. So the proposal that's in front of you keeps that consistent. We certainly, you know, if there's lifeguards that we could rehire for next year, we don't want to risk losing any of those. And when you compare the additional certification needed to be a lifeguard at the lake versus a pool, which I believe, talking with the school district, their lifeguards are paid a little bit under what we pay the lake. I think it warrants that additional per hour rate. The proposal also in front of you, we also had an option to have a full-time supervisor that would be present at the beach. That would be a non-lifeguard, and that would be just under $10,000 extra. Talking with Allison Abbott, who is our contact through this process through USA Management, I decided not to include that in the proposal. So we would have lead guards who would take on that supervisory role while being there. I didn't feel like there was a need for us to have that additional supervision. There's several advantages to that, but I know talking with the board, you know, one of the things that they wanted to do is to try to find a proposal that would be within the current costs that we have for our current lifeguard services. So that was the intended goal that I tried to do when putting the agreement in front of you. I do want to thank Allison Abbott. Allison has been a great person to work with on getting to where we are today. It would have been awesome probably for both of us to have a few more weeks to be able to put together the agreement. But knowing that we have to finalize this before August, otherwise we would see the contract go up in cost. We wanted to get this to the board as soon as possible to avoid that happening. So as a result, there were a few loose ends that I had put in the memo. This would be on page 4 in your board packet. So there are a few things based on my review and some things that also our village attorney, Nathan Bear, identified that we had asked USA Management to address. I talked with Allison this morning, who had gotten in contact with her legal team, and all of them will be met except 2. The 2 that they are not able to pull out of the agreement or modify. One is reference to the touch tone telephone. The USA Management legal team expressed that they want to leave that in there, which is important for contacting 911. Our previous providers have not had access to a touch-tone telephone, nor do I think we have an easy way of providing access to a touch-tone telephone. So this would be an item that we would have to work with USA Management to find out a solution that would be content with them as well as us. In the past, we've always had lifeguards who have had phone access in case there was an emergency. The other thing that the legal team was not able to modify was the Wi-Fi hotspot. We are not able to provide Wi-Fi access. So that would be something that, even though it's in the language, I've been very forthright with Allison that we would not be able to provide that. I'm going to give Allison a little bit time to be able to talk about USA Management briefly, and then she can address those two items from her perspective. But all in all, I think we're at a pretty good spot with the contract subject to those two items. And then there's two other things I'm going to ask Allison to touch on. One question I've had actually from multiple trustees is about the start date of the contract, or a start date of the service, I should say. Specifically, as you all know, in past agreements, we've always had the fourth weekend of June be the start date of the service. We had moved that up a week to see what the cost would be. So I had an inquiry from some of the board members to see if we were to go back to the fourth weekend in June, what would the cost implications be for that? And then the other question that I had asked, and Allison, if you could speak on this too, is there's a part at the end of the agreement that says if we were to terminate the agreement before all the effective dates were to be in service, that the village would still be on hook for 50% of the costs until we have completely done the contract through the effective dates. So I asked her to clarify that statement, just so as you as a board, if we were to adopt the service agreement tonight, you would understand what the implications would be for that. I think with that being said, President McCaig, if you're okay, I'd love for Allison to be able to make some comments before we turn it over to the board for Q&A. Is that okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Tyler. I appreciate you as well. To answer your first question, if you started the fourth week in June, factoring in that $15 per hour that we discussed, and that reduction would be a cost of $1,545. And that's, again, talking about that $15 per hour rate. On the second question about the termination prior to the 3-year term that we've discussed, I don't have the actual concrete data for you there. I wanted to have that for tonight, but I don't have that yet. So I'm hoping that I'll have that for you tomorrow. I will say that they did reference there would be some type of penalty if the 3 years weren't met. The good news is that we bill that 1 year cost in the first and second year, like I previously mentioned, to help really just cover our costs up front and to make sure that you're not using us just to hire our to hire and get everybody running and then leave us and take the staff. So the reason we do the first year or the second year, the 1 year rate is so that you don't have that until the third, cost reduction to the third year. But they did say there would be a penalty. They just couldn't give me the dollar amount over the phone today.
And then Allison, did you want to comment at all about, because I know you work with several other pools and facilities, do you want to comment about typically when it comes to accessing telephones and utilizing Wi-Fi's hotspots?
Yeah.
How typical that is in those different facilities?
So I would say about 50% of our facilities actually provide Wi-Fi. It is part of our agreement. We do ask for it. The reason we ask for it is because we use an application called GoQuatics that requires staff to clock in on a smart device, whether that be a phone, an iPad, any kind of tablet. And so, yes, on their phones they have data, they do. In some instances, we're in markets that, you know, the young people that we hire really don't have data plans, and so we require the Wi-Fi. I think that really you guys are going to be fine. I don't think, you know, we're not going to come out and audit the facility and say, oh my gosh, they don't have a hotspot or have Wi-Fi, we can't work here. Again, 50% of our facilities don't have that, and I have zero issues. We do have a few other facilities as well that don't have the 911 phone. Again, our team has not come in and audited and said, oh, we can't work here. Is it nice and is it a good idea? Sure. But really the health department is going to be the one that stipulates that. Our Go Products app has, as long as they're using their phone, it actually has a button for them to dial 911 on the phone. And so 911 will pick up their GPS as well. So if they don't know the address of the lake, at least the operator that's answering will know. I personally do not think that those are going to be points that we can't get around and get through. We operate already without that, but our legal team isn't letting me take that out of the agreement. And so other than giving you my verbal commitment that we can operate, I don't know what else to do because I can't remove those from the actual agreement themselves.
So that concludes our presentation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, why don't we take questions from the trustees? Or you can, you know, make a motion, but maybe questions first would be advisable. Questions from the trustees? Oh, Trustee Urson.
Thanks, Tyler, and thank you, Ellie. You know, I guess one of my questions is, and we can't rewind here, but big question is why has Eric decided to step down from this position?
Yeah, Eric loved it. I talked with him today to reflect on his service. He was really appreciative. I think it comes to a point in his career that he doesn't want to be spending every day at the beach. He loves the beach and that, but he's, I think, starting to move, transition his career and his life elsewhere, where he, during the summer, would like to travel a little more as well. So that is his main reason for wanting to conclude the service.
You know, he was really just like the orchestra conductor down there. He would do a mixture of everything. You know, I've been down there so many times where it was like he owned that beach and he was on top of everything. From, you know, the minor details like trash pickup and making sure people picked up their trash to, you know, obviously safety issues. So, you know, he will be greatly missed in the community. And, you know, it's unfortunate, and sorry, Ellie, but it's unfortunate we only have one RFP response, because I feel like this is a really big sort of ask. This is a big kind of situation, and we don't have any competition here. And just doing a basic search on reviews for US management, I mean, there's a lot of 1-star reviews, a lot of 0-star reviews, a lot of 2-star reviews, and there's just a lot of anger at the company, you know. So I'd hate for us to have to rush into a situation where, you know, we're just picking whatever's out there. But I know that there's a sense of urgency here. So I kind of feel like we're stuck a little bit, that if we don't make this decision today, we won't have lifeguards next year. But if we make this decision today, we might be making a poor decision. So, and I apologize. I've, like I said, I only done a basic, you know, hour-long research of US management and read all the reviews, and some of them are not very flattering. So I just wanted to throw that out there as my 2 cents.
Ms. Abbott, would you like to respond?
I mean, I can't say that I look and read I can't.
Maybe turning off your video may help you with your broadband.
So probably employees that were terminated. So I provided
Abby, I'm
references
sorry.
to
Abby,
Tyler, and
we
you're
missed all
welcome
of that.
to reach out to those people. But I think that we would do a great job. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we missed the beginning
can
of
you hear
what
me?
you had to say.
We had trouble.
What I was saying is that I have not read those reviews, but I can say if there are poor reviews, it's most likely employee related and not customer related. And employees can go on and say whatever they want, but they were likely terminated for a reason from the company. But I'm happy to discuss further if you'd like to.
Thank you.
President McKay?
Yes, Trustee Bachhorst.
Okay, I'm going to say that that's speculative, but and I think it's a great question that Trustee Ursink had, and I know we're kind of in a pickle here, but this is our one opportunity to get what we want. And I did hear before that there were some legal aspects that we have to go on good faith, and I know we've got several attorneys on the board and in the municipality. I have a hard time going on good faith when it's written in the contract. But anyway, go ahead. Thank you.
Other trustees? Questions? Yes, Trustee Stokbrand.
Thank you, President McKay. So I'm just curious, why do we have the September 1 deadline? Because we would like a little more time. And we were told that, I mean, we had a special meeting, other things did come on, but I mean, we're having a special meeting just because when I was approached about this, I said, well, I don't want to pay more just because we don't have a meeting. So I'm willing to come to a special meeting because you have to have a vote before September 1, which starts me thinking about how will it be to work with this company?
Sure. So the proposal that was provided had a 60-day expiration date on it. And when that expiration date hits, it is subject to increase. And since you all have certain meetings that were already predetermined, when I went back to Tyler, I let him know that in order for us to keep the proposal for a longer period of time, that I would have to put in an automatic increase in that proposal. The reason for that is because we only grow our business by 20% each year. And for me to hold that slot for that amount of time, it does dictate the fact that I can't sell and do other contracts. And so there was a increase to hold it for that time.
Okay, and if we didn't do this tonight, what would the increase be? Maybe could you refresh my memory, Tyler or Allison?
Yeah, it would be just over $1,000. I think it would be close to about 1,500 or so per year.
Okay, thank you. And where's your nearest? Where's your nearest other client? If we hire you in Shorewood, where's your nearest client in Shorewood?
Are you talking municipalities or are you talking private businesses?
Anything.
Well, we have clients all throughout the Milwaukee, southern Wisconsin area, and then into Chicago.
Okay, but we would be your only beach, or is that?
In Wisconsin, yes, ma'am. You would be the only beach. Not the only beach that our company operates, but in Wisconsin, that would be true.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess one of the key points is, can we provide a touch tone telephone so it can't be at the bunker, it needs to be down at the beach or?
Anywhere on property, it doesn't specify exactly where.
And do we have any idea how much that would cost? Tyler, do we have any?
We do not.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be some additional, and if you as a board, if that was a determining factor, which I would understand, that would be some additional analysis we would have to do to complete.
So it could be 1,000, it could be 5,000. Is that my understanding? We just really have no ballpark figure to get a touch tone phone. So we're talking a landline, right?
Right, but yeah, I don't even know if a telephone line goes to that area or not. That would be some research that we would need DPW to work with us to get.
Okay, the other thing I had a question about, so on page 6, modify language so that the village has the option to agree to an added cost of $150 per day for additional incentive pay, discounted certifications, uniform cost to help recruitment. Is that in the current proposed language? It's the second to the penultimate bullet point.
Yes, it is.
So that would still be in the proposed contract, is that correct?
Correct, and I can speak on this one. So what the language will be modified, it'll make it clear that it's if the village agrees. So if Allison were to contact me saying that they were having a hard time recruiting, the language will say that the village will need to agree to that before they would implement that.
Okay, so just doing some simple math, if we stick with the 9 weeks, which I think was with the added week, which I asked about, queried about, could we add a week and make it 9 instead of 8? I guess 63 days at $150, that's about $10,000. It's $9,500, right?
Yeah, if they were to have a hard time recruiting individuals and decided to utilize that tactic and we agreed to it, correct.
Okay, so is it a not to exceed 150?
I think it's just yeah, Allison, I don't know if you want to confirm. I read it as it would just be a 150. I don't, but you correct me if I'm wrong.
You know, we've never used that. I don't know in what scenario. I mean, quite frankly, we have never asked anyone to spend more money because we've been unable to recruit, hire, and train staff. We already offer certifications at a reduction, and we have a program set up for underprivileged personnel that can't afford certifications. So I can get more clarification for you. I've not been asked questions on that a lot, and we've never utilized it in the years I've worked for USA Management, at least in my market.
Okay, good to know. It just seems relevant because in Milwaukee County, that's the big issue, is they can't get lifeguards. And so I wonder, because we're losing the previous vendor is a high school teacher. And so obviously the recruiting was a very different and highly beneficial situation, right? And so now we could be going to a company that does not have that presence at the high school with the age and the demographic that would be most likely to be a lifeguard. And I just wonder, you know, if we don't know if we could be adding a touch tone phone at a cost to be determined, a $10,000 recruitment possible fee. And also my question is, the first payment is due in January. So what if by March you figure out we're not going to have enough lifeguards trained? What if, so I think your model is you have three lifeguards and one lifeguard supervisor who's also a lifeguard. So if you decide in March you're not going to have enough to staff at that level, what happens to this contract?
Well, I mean, you have the ability to cancel the contract for non-performance if that is the scenario. Again, we do a lot of recruiting in the high schools. Those are things and conversations I've had with Tyler to let him know how we do recruit, because we are recruiting seasonally. It's very youth-based. And so we have to be within the community, especially the high schools and colleges. So we are already doing those things. Having the gentleman previously maybe could segue us in so that it's easier to get into those schools would be nice. But we also have instructors on our staff. And so maybe Milwaukee County doesn't have that, but our team has LGIs, which are lifeguard instructors that can train anyone. So you don't have to come to us already certified. We have that ability to certify. In addition, gosh, I'm sorry, I lost what your actual question was.
I guess the end of what I'm thinking here is, if there's a problem with recruiting, which has been a problem before, and we lose our closest recruiting link that we have, and we are, if we pay you, I think the first amount was in January, is $3,200 by January 1, and then another payment in February, $3,200 again in April. And you decide, have you ever had a situation where you couldn't staff a commitment that you made a contract for?
I have not. Under any of the contracts I have operated with, I have not had that happen.
And this
now, this year
was
a rough year. 2021 was very, very tough, but we made it, and we were able to staff every single location. Can't say it was pretty at times, but it happened, and we were good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a trustee Andorfer.
Thanks. Going back to something Arthur said earlier, I had the opportunity to speak at length with Eric back this past spring, and yeah, I mean, he was looking to do some other things with his life beyond, you know, life's a beach, but sometimes you do want to do things beyond that. Yeah, but that's going to be a huge loss. And I mean, one of the points he did make is that finding vendors for something like this is not an easy path. So I just had a couple questions, just clarifying. One, I just want to get a sense of what the pricing schedule for this looks like compared to what we have been operating under. Two, are the service levels considered, are the service levels consistent with what we currently have? And then, finally, going back to something I said earlier, Tyler, if you can offer a point of view in terms of, what the vendor pool is like to find, in this area.
Okay. On costs, currently we have in the 2021 budget, $30,800 for coastline services. So if you look at the costs that are being proposed today, it's a little more for the first 2 years, and it'll be a little less for year 3. So while it's in the ballpark, I think it averages out to be a slight increase versus what we paid Eric. The first year, I'm going to ask to budget a little more as well, because there's going to be some potential of equipment that we'll need to pay for to meet the operation level that USA Management may request to doing lifeguard services. But reviewing the scope of service they would provide, it would be fairly comparable to what the scope of services would be now. Same hours, 11 to 4, pretty much the same ratio as far as number of lifeguards on duty. That all would be fairly in line. I'll be honest, I mean, I have a public administration degree. I don't have a recreation degree. So me trying to evaluate, lifeguard vendors is something that it's not in my wheelhouse. When I did my research and sent out, I think we did like 10 different inquiries, finding someone that is willing to do water or lakefront or outdoor water certified lifeguard services is extremely rare. A lot of the companies that do this nationally or regionally are pool based. So that was majority of the reason why a lot of people didn't respond to us to begin with, is because they didn't feel comfortable in that setting. The two other options that I thought could have been feasible and a good fit, both declined to submit a proposal. The one was the school district. The school district has, typically recreation programs are in the village or the municipality. So that's why like a service like this makes a lot more sense. But since recreation's in the school district, it gets a little difficult for the village because we don't have an org structure that supports supervision of lifeguards. Talking with Jody Brooks, they did not want to take this on. And so with the school district saying no, the only other option I could think of was Fox Point, because they have a pool and they understand operations of a pool. And talking with them, the assistant manager is the one that typically, similar to myself, manages a contract, and they find a few people that manage that program. And they did not want to submit an RF or submit a proposal. They said, if you want to talk with us to setting up an arrangement, you can, but we're not going to submit a proposal for these services. And then since I've had that conversation, their assistant village manager is gone. So that's a vacancy. So I don't even have someone to have that conversation with right now. So, if you were to say no to the agreement, we would, but still wanted lifeguard services, we would have to think very creatively. But just please know the options are going to be very limited. You know, I think the school district, unless there's other individuals you would want to talk with, I think is pretty firm in saying no to providing services. And I don't know if Fox Point is going to be at a time in their organization that they would be able to provide these. So, and the county also said no, county parks, because they can't even provide lifeguards at their own parks and pools. So we have limited options, but I can tell you once again, working with Allison, you know, so far it's been very professional. She's been responsive to all my inquiries this far. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, Trustee Arndorfer, but that's my response.
Thanks, Tyler. And I guess just in closing, I mean, Eric was incredibly passionate about this. I mean, he believes in the mission. I obviously can't speak for him, but I'd have to imagine he'd be, if able, happy to help coordinate the transition with whomever we wind up working. So thank you. No further questions.
Other trustees who have not had, Trustee Warren?
Yeah, I just have a question and a comment. So Tyler, how long did we leave the RFP open for?
A month.
A month. So, I mean, I guess my big concern, just straight talk, this feels a little rushed. And it feels like the decision point is awfully quick and it feels like we have a lot of time. All that being said, my worry is that I don't know if there's a variable that can change significantly enough between now and when we pay more that would influence this vote in a way that would kind of flip the vote or change the vote. So I do appreciate kind of the rush nature. And I certainly appreciate Trustee Stokerand, I think, asked some excellent questions. But I kind of go back to, I don't know that there's going to be a variable in the decision point that changes between now and the September date that would justify us paying that additional cost. I do worry, you know, as Trustee Stokerand pointed out, the telephone, we just don't have a ballpark. So I would anticipate and hope that if that comes back at some ridiculous price point, it would come back to the board and we'd have to figure out something or, you know, cease negotiation of the contract. I worry about approving something, you know, kind of sight unseen. You know, I could see the telephone costing $100. I could see it costing $1,000. I could see it costing $10,000. I have no point of reference and I don't like committing to that, but I would assume, Tyler, that if that was something that was a material expenditure and had to come out of our general fund, it would come back to the board for some sort of approval or something like that. Is that right? It's kind of a question / statement.
Yes, I mean, it would be something that we would budget for. I mean, staff is finalizing the budget right now. So we're trying to identify all the necessary costs for Atwater Beach lifeguards so we can have it in that line item. So, you know, if approved tonight, that would be something that we would identify. And yeah, if that was a pending item that you wanted to put a dollar amount attached, that if it exceeded, we would have to come back to the board for, you know, a consideration. You know, that could be another way that we could go about that for now.
Okay.
That's what I have for tonight, though.
Yeah, I mean that helps. I mean, I guess you know, I guess just kind of my main thematically, I'm just thinking, you know, is there enough here that my decision or our decision might change if you inject other things into this between now and September when the price goes up? And I don't know, but I'm concerned about the telephone. I certainly would support something that kind of called that out as something that has to come back to us. But I mean, the decision point really becomes, given the response to the RFP, whether we want lifeguards or not, because I don't think we can pull this back out, say we don't want a contract here and then end up with lifeguards. I think that becomes very tough and we'd have to get very lucky. So I think I'm fully supportive of trying to find a good way to decide this tonight. And I'll cut my comments off there because we are way past time on this agenda item already. So.
Trustee Baldoff, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, mine have, I think, largely been addressed, but I, you know, had concerns as well about the telephone and the Wi-Fi, not only the cost, but the ability to provide those and what that does to the contract. I have concerns. I echo Trustee Warren's concerns about voting on something that we haven't seen. And I heard Allison, I think, said, you know, that some of the clients they serve, you know, just don't have those things. And that's concerning to me. I just wanted to pose the question, if it is, you know, cost prohibitive, or if it's just not possible to put a touch tone phone there or Wi-Fi there, and cost aside, what does that create liability for the board if there's some kind of incident or accident and we didn't provide something that it says we were supposed to provide in this contract? Because I would be concerned about our liability if something happens where we can't provide.
Mhm.
May I respond, President McKay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Allison, if you could just confirm, because one of the things that I talked with Allison last week and trying to identify different options that we could, and I understand, you know, as far as the question, you know, not everything being resolved, the hesitancy to jump right into a service agreement. So I was trying to problem solve with Allison to identify if there was something in the middle that we could do to at least show our willingness or interest. So Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but one option that we could do is kind of do a motion of intent to enter into the agreement. And then you could list pending which items. And then Allison, I believe you mentioned that if we do some kind of public motion showing interest of intent, and then if we get these final things figured out, we could still approve it in September to finalize the service agreement, and USA Management would still be willing to uphold the fees. Did I characterize that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. That's what I said.
Okay, so if we go down that route, you're not entering into the service agreement tonight, but we're doing a public vote that shows level of interest in entering the agreement, subject to, and then it's those, you know, basically it's the telephone, the hotspot, and then any Wi-Fi hotspot than anything else. That would give us a little bit more time that we could finalize those items, and then we could put it on the September agenda. You know, maybe consent agenda, I'm not sure, but on the agenda for final approval.
Now we're talking. I could support that. I could support a motion of intent. I have one question. Just to confirm, are the lifeguards certified for open water safety?
Yes, they would be certified for open water safety.
I think at this time, I'd entertain a motion, and I guess I would like to clarify what the language should be, Attorney Bayer, to make sure that we are just taking a public vote of intent, because I'm not going to support the service agreement as presented for those very reasons.
I was wondering if before I get to that, if I could just make a brief comment. There was a very reasonable question that was asked about liability and assumption of risk and those types of things, if I could.
Yes, thank you. I meant to ask you that.
Oh, thank you. So first of all, if you look at it from the perspective of, you know, there's many different kinds of businesses that, you know, operate in this arena. Well, this particular business is dealing in a high level of risk. I mean, they're putting people on the beach and in pools in different settings every day where what they're trying to prevent is that catastrophic injury or accident. And when that catastrophic injury or accident occurs, they want to be able to ensure that they have the ability to call 911 or emergency personnel to come in to assist or carry, or be it you know, the helicopter for Flight for Life or whatever it might be, or just the ambulance. So when the representative of the company says that's a non-negotiable factor, that our legal team is telling me I can't remove that, that's why, because they want to make sure that they have a certain level of safety built into what they do. And so to have either a push button phone that's not connected through a cell service, which maybe there's no cell service at the beach, that's an understandable thing for them to say to us, and that's an understandable thing. But I would not enter into the contract and just say, well, we're going to forget about those 2 clauses and deal with them later. I would know what you're going to do on that front. And then the larger question was, is there any potential liability of the municipality if we don't provide those things? I would say in the abstract, generally there's probably not. There's a number of doctrines in Wisconsin that would probably preclude any liability on the municipality in the general sense. However, if a creative plaintiff's attorney said, well, wait a minute, they assumed a risk, they assumed some liability because here's a contract that they signed and they entered into where they promised they were going to provide a phone that's not a cellular phone, they were going to provide a touch tone, and they were going to provide Wi-Fi to have these extra layers of protection there so that emergency staff, Flight for Life could be called, the ambulance could be called, and they didn't do it. A judge might say, well, they've assumed some contractual liabilities, so we're going to abrogate their other immunity that they would otherwise be entitled to, and we're going to abrogate some of these other doctrines that might preclude liability. So, if again, it's a perfectly understandable thing for the contractor to say, we want these things because again, they're dealing in risk, they're carrying a high level of potential risk, and they have all liability insurance to cover that, but there's some very bad catastrophic things that can happen at a beach, and that's why they're insisting upon those things. So, and that's fine, but I wouldn't, if I would have a plan for that, and I would figure out how to address those things, and I would not advise entering into the contract and just saying, well, we'll wink and nod, and nobody will call us on it. And we just won't worry about it, even though it's written into the contract, because that's okay until the day that something catastrophic happens, and then it becomes an issue. So that would be my comments with respect to the liability. And again, it's a very reasonable, and I certainly understand why the contractor's legal team is telling them those are non-negotiable. You can't take them out. The second part of the question, I think, is I think what I heard is, could we conditionally approve a contract? I mean, I think what you could do is to say, is to move to direct staff to examine the issue with the Wi-Fi and the phone, and if the cost to meet those contractual terms is under X, to enter into the contract by such and such a date or something along those lines. But we can't unilaterally amend a contract, and we wouldn't be doing that. It would be essentially like a conditional approval. And I think, ma'am, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if I heard you correctly, I think you were saying something along the lines of that would be acceptable to you as the contractor, sort of a conditional approval.
Yes, that's right. If the intent is there, then I can keep the costs where they're at. It's when there's no communication and intent that the cost would increase.
And did I accurately reflect the reasons that you have those clauses in your contracts? The clauses about
yes, you did.
Okay. So that would be my additional comments to the body.
Thank you, Attorney Baer. I have a question. Ms. Abbott, have you made a site visit for this beach?
I have not personally been on site.
Has anyone from your company?
Not in 2021 that I'm aware of.
Okay, because it is it's a very steep bluff with a switchback service road, and then very steep stairs. So I just wanted I think that I would feel a lot more comfortable if in, sort of these layers of safety, even if there were a landline that was put into the bunker at the top of the bluff, it's not a, 20-foot run, to get to, whereas a pool deck phone would be much more accessible. So I don't have the resolution on that if we can enter, if we can take a vote of intent, I would accept that. I would also accept leaving Tyler to do this research and convene a very quick meeting, the last week of August or something like that, or even September, the week before Labor Day, with how late it falls this year. But doing that, I also realized that I haven't asked if there were any members of the public that wanted to be heard on this matter. And so I would like to do that before a motion is made. So if anybody can help me see hands, if there's anyone who would like to be heard.
Nobody from the public, just 3 trustees.
Okay. Trustees, is there a motion at this time?
Well, I'm ready to make a motion, but trustee Backhorst is before me.
Okay. Trustee Backhorst? I'd like to try to wrap
Sorry. Yep, I appreciate all the questions. I have a couple of them as well that go along the lines, and thank you, Nathan, for clarifying. I'll be quick here. So I don't know, what the timeline would be for verifying, the cost as far as the type of phone that is being required by the contract from the vendor. Also wanted to find out if, and I understand the letter of intent or the motion of intent, if there would be wiggle room, not only, with the $1,500, I think it was per year, over 3 years or whatever it was, regarding the increase, but also if we could, we might want to think of the motion if we want to see if the vendor would be willing to do a reduced term of contract, given there's so many uncertainties here on our part. And we are being asked to make an incredible leap of faith with the organization that has not been to the site, has also in the state of Wisconsin does not offer beach service. So I understand, kind of up against it, but it sounds like, maybe the vendor would be willing to, have some wiggle room here, given that these are some great leaps of faith on our municipal part. And as a fiduciary, I really want to make sure that we're not only, putting our organization and the health and welfare of the community and beyond at risk, but also that we're not putting ourselves on the line unnecessarily for a 3-year contract. I'm not sure why, if they'd be willing to go to a lesser one, but those are my questions and I'll just leave it at that.
Not to intercede, but I don't want to get into rewriting a contract by committee here tonight, but if those questions can be addressed, I'd appreciate that.
There was a 1-year option that was offered.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be at a higher rate than the 3-year agreement. So if you were to do a 1-year, just know it, I don't know on the top of my head, Allison, I don't know if you do, but I think it was a few $1,000s more for the 1 year versus the 3-year.
And
if you look, we can talk about that later if you like, but it is a little bit higher than the 3-year. Yes.
is there a way to get out of the 3-year contract if the services, if the village is not satisfied after 1 year? Is there a penalty or an out?
There's a cancellation clause. There is a penalty if you do not go by all 3 years. There is a penalty, and that's what Tyler asked me the first question, and I don't have the answers with what that looks like. I'm hoping to get that for him tomorrow.
All right. Is there anyone? I would take a motion at this time.
I can.
Warren?
Yeah, I can take a shot at that. I would move to authorize staff to enter into a letter of intent with USA Management, subject to resolution of the issues around the telephone line and Wi-Fi hotspot, and return with a completed agreement on the first meeting in September.
I would, before anyone seconds it, would you mind adding and make a site visit
That sounds good to me.
If I may, just a small amendment, if we're doing both, all that in the site amendment or a site visit, could we do either meeting in September just to give a little bit more time to coordinate that? And Allison, I just want to make sure you're okay with that too. Because if the September 8th, we can't get it done by then, knowing also we have the Labor Day weekend coming up, it might be nice to have September 20th then as an option.
I'm okay with it. So let's change my motion to either and bring back for final approval either meeting in September. Key
I would
points
second.
Sorry. Do you have that, Tyler? I just want to make sure you have it.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion from Trustee Warren, seconded by President McCaig. Any discussion? Trustee Stokebrand?
You're muted.
Thank you. We would insert the cost when we actually approve it, if we approve it in September, is that correct?
Correct.
And I just want to be clear then, the not to exceeds for 32,480 for the first 2 years and 28,610 for 24, that does not include this clause about the extra almost $9,500, which they say they've never had to use to incentivize staff, right? So that would be, which is, 30%. If they invoke this, it's a 30% cost increase, right?
That is correct, but remember that would be with our approval too. And I can tell you as the staff monitoring this, I would not do that unless I had village board's approval.
Okay, and if we would sign this in September and we make our first payments in January, February, there's none in March, but in April, and then they find they can't get enough lifeguards, do we get any of that money back? She said they have had trouble getting lifeguards, but they have done it. Okay, I just want to know if they can't get enough lifeguards in 2022 and we've made payments in January, February, and April, how much are we on the hook for and what we would not get back? Do we know that?
You would only pay for monies used for recruiting, advertising, hiring, that type of thing.
So we would get the money back minus recruiting costs.
That's right.
Yeah, minus the labor that's already been performed.
Okay.
And when we talk labor, yeah, the administrative labor, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And I noticed it looked like in the document we had a couple of, there's some duplicate pages. It talked about there was some sort of an automatic 10% cost increase in some of the contract language, but there was also a lot of language that referred to swimming pools and stuff. So I'm guessing that was just an error. So in the packet on page 11, I'm sorry, page 10, it said something about this agreement shall then continue from year to year on the same terms and conditions set forth herein at an amount not to exceed an increase of 10% each year. That's not relevant for us. Is that correct?
Correct. That was if for some reason we decided to just continue with the agreement into year 4, year 5 without a new agreement, which we would not do. So what they're just saying is if we didn't pass another agreement, they would just up to 10% increase the cost. So I would not worry about that because we would not do that.
So it's NA. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't see any other hands raised, President McKay. You are on mute, sorry.
If that's the case, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Great. Okay. Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Arndorfer?
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand?
Aye.
Trustee Ursink?
Aye.
Trustee Baldoff?
Muted.
Aye.
Thanks. Trustee Backhorst
Yes.
and President McKay.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you very much. Those are really, really good discussion. Very thorough. Appreciate it. And thank you, Ms. Abbott, for your time and patience.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to 5B, considering ordinance 3027 or resolution 2021-2020-22 face covering requirements during the COVID-19 pandemic. This item is before us in response to a request from the community, from the group Mask Up Shorewood, and also in response to the change in CDC guidance that's outlined in the memo. I'm going to check in with Tyler to see if there's anything that you wanted to add before we enter into consideration in this.
Yeah, I'll just, if I may, may reiterate the three possibilities. One would be adopting the ordinance that is presented in front of you. One would be adopting the resolution. And then one would just be continued encouragement of the CDC guidelines and not adopting either. If one of the questions I'm anticipating tonight, so what's the difference between an ordinance and a resolution? Ordinance becomes law, but then it becomes a question of how the police department would enforce, which the police department would continue doing pretty much what we did the first go around with the ordinance, which it would be on a complaint basis, and it would be through education. I don't think there would be much past that, but that's where we would work with staff as far as what that education would be. And then there's a $750 cost in order to do the ordinance, rather the resolution would not have a cost associated with it. That's it.
And with the resolution, there's no enforcement obligation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then, and in terms of strongly encouraging, that could be issued as an advisory in our communications.
It could.
Okay. And I guess I'll just call everyone's attention in the memo. There is some guidance from Attorney Baer in terms of the merit or lack of merit in an ordinance without enforcement mechanisms attached. So we do have that guidance from Attorney Baer. So since this is so well laid out, I am just going to ask if there's a motion that anyone would like to make at this time. Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you, President McKay. I move that the Shorewood Village Board strongly encourage the community to follow CDC guidance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Stokebrand for an advisory, seconded by Trustee Backhorst. Is there discussion? I am, just so you know, I'm kind of looking for hands, but I'm not. Help me out.
I think there's someone raising, oh, there's a few board members now.
Yeah.
So we have Trustee Warren and Trustee Bulba.
I could not, sorry.
Okay. Let's see.
I have my hand up.
Yeah, who was that?
This is Alyssa Evans from Mask Up Shorewood.
Okay, great. Why don't we take comments from the public who would like to be heard? Alyssa Evans, please. Ms. Evans, would you like to speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I can't hear you guys well.
Yep, go ahead, Alyssa. We can hear you.
Well, hopefully you can hear me. Okay. Now I hear you guys. All right. So I'll try to be brief. I mean, as you all know, and it was in your memo. Well, I just want to say something. You know, when you say strongly encouraging or even continuing to strongly encourage, that
sounds really weak if we're assuming that there is strong encouragement currently, because I think there isn't. And, you know, even just the signs on the businesses around Shorewood now, they still say, most of them still say, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask, you know. So many of the businesses I have noticed are not in line with current CDC recommendations. So the encouragement has not happened. But I just kind of wanted to very quickly, I'm sure you guys all know this, but just, you know, tell you, okay, so the CDC now says, as we all know, that everybody, vaccinated, unvaccinated, should wear a mask in public indoor settings in areas of substantial or high transmission. I just wanted to define what that is. So, I mean, basically, so in high community transmission areas, which is Shorewood, which is the North Shore, which is Milwaukee right now, everyone should be masking up indoors. There's just no discussion. And so high transmission means that we have 100 plus cases per 100,000 people, or a positivity rate above 10%. Right now, Shorewood is considered high with 288 cases per 100,000. The North Shore is considered critical with 353. Milwaukee, whatever terminology they're using, is considered very high with 469, and these are all going up exponentially. And many of the surrounding communities who frequent Shorewood and who we interact with regularly, especially our children, are at critical levels, exceeding Shorewood by quite a bit. Fox Point, River Hills, Bayside, Glendale, Whitefish Bay are all high or critical. So I just feel like, I know there's been talk about that, you know, businesses feel they have a handle on this, but things have changed. Unfortunately, the Delta variant has kind of thrown everything for a loop, and, you know, doing something weaker than last year, I can't comprehend. And, you know, even if it's not enforceable, last year it worked. I mean, or it helped, certainly. People listened, and there was a huge change in people's behavior after the ordinance was passed. So whether it's an ordinance, a resolution, or I think it was a resolution last year, there were a few different things. But the thing, and I also just want everyone to think about the fact that schools are about to start again, and this is really, if for no one else, for our children. Our children under 12 are not vaccinated. Cases are going up like never before among young children, including here. I mean, the 5 to 12 age range is going up exponentially in Shorewood, in the North Shore, Milwaukee, in the country. And we know that that community spread leads to spread in the schools. So I just think that we need to keep this in mind when making a decision of whether to just say, let's encourage people to make a good decision, or to say something a little more strong and tell people you need to follow this, what the CDC is recommending, because this time around we actually have the CDC telling us something, giving us guidance, whereas last year we didn't even have that. I think that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I'm imagining, Tyler, that if we did, if this advisory motion passed, that we would be able to work with the bid to create signs that we could, with the CDC guidance on it, the current CDC guidance on it, and offer those to the businesses to help them make that step.
Yes, we could definitely work with staff in the bid to do that.
Okay. All right, trustees that would like to be heard? Unless there were other hands in the audience and members of the public. I didn't see any. Okay. Trustees?
Sure.
Well, I don't know who was first.
Melissa, you can go.
Go.
Okay. You know, so I'll express the concern I expressed when we had the conversation around the original mandate expiring, which is even though vaccination rates are high in Shorewood, the vaccination rate for children under 12 is 0 because they can't get the shot yet. And I know that our schools are requiring masks, and I'm very happy for that to be the case, even though, you know, everyone in my family is fully vaccinated because my kids are both old enough to have gotten the vaccine. I worry about our little kiddos, and I worry about our teachers, even those who are vaccinated and masked could still get sick. I would have to imagine we have some immune compromised people, you know, working in our schools and in our village, you know, buildings. And I worry about those folks that they are going to be more at risk while they're doing their jobs. And this has been a tough year for people. And, you know, I've always said, I want to follow the science, listen to the doctors. And I had some concerns about the CDC changing its guidance when they did. I agree that the science was there, that the transmission risk was lower for people, you know, who are vaccinated, and, you know, that people who are vaccinated could go without masks. But the problem was that, you know, not enough people anywhere were doing what they were supposed to. There was no enforcement mechanism. There was no way to prove that somebody had been vaccinated, and that's why they weren't wearing a mask. And, you know, that's why I think we are finding ourselves in this position again, is because not enough people did the right thing. I worry about not doing enough, and then being back here again in a month or 2 months because things are getting worse and we're going to have to go further. I worry about us heading into the flu season when it starts to get cold. That's not that far off. And I look at, you know, I think we're starting to see some businesses on their own are having these, you know, larger companies are starting to require masks or vaccines. We're seeing, you know, Summerfest is going to require proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test, and they're going to be asking that people wear masks. So, you know, I would hate to see us not do enough here, not take this seriously enough, and then, you know, have to keep revisiting this when what we really need is for people to take this as seriously as possible right now and do their part to stop it from getting worse. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Trustee Warren?
Well, this is I appreciate those comments, and I appreciate, Alyssa, I appreciate your comments. I'm just trying to think this through and think what the best position for the village to land in. I mean, for my own personal preference, the way I'm thinking about this, I'd like to have something that is a little bit stronger than just a just the current motion on the floor. I'd ideally, and I'm sorry, I'm flipping through, I have only one screen right now. I would ideally like some sort of resolution. I think the ordinance in and of itself is problematic because there really is no enforcement mechanism. And I certainly wouldn't support having the police enforce a mask ordinance. So I think you come back to, you know, a resolution, which is kind of a more concrete expression of the village's intent with respect to masks. So, I mean, for me, I would certainly, I'm not going to vote against the resolution on the floor. I think I'd probably end up abstaining because I don't think it goes far enough, but I certainly wouldn't want to be in a nay camp there. I would prefer to take it a step further though, and make it a resolution. So kind of the intermediary step contained within the memo.
I would tend to agree with.
Sorry, Trustee Ursink, I called on you, but I was muted.
So I tend to agree with Trustee Warren. You know, I've really tried to take as much time to talk to, you know, every sort of stakeholder in the community, residents, Mask Up Shorewood, our businesses, and you know, I've had a lot of discussion being the bid liaison with the business district. You know, I think our business community is you know, in a really tough spot right now because, you know, they've had the chance to rebound a little bit. They're all, you know, for the most part, they're all pretty willing to go with whatever course the village decides to go on, which is great. But I think some of our bars and restaurants are a little bit in a tougher position, and I'm a little bit nervous that that, you know, this could really harm some of those businesses. We did put off construction. I hate to equate construction of a road to the pandemic, but we did push off our road construction on North Oakland to help our businesses kind of rebound a little bit. So I am a little bit more sensitive to making sure that the businesses, you know, have the opportunity to bounce back a little bit, but you know, at what length? So I would agree a little bit more so with the resolution. I know a mandate has stronger language, but it being unenforceable, I think it can be a challenge. You know, our community to, you know, it can be a challenge, and I just hate to govern like that. You know, so I would be open to a resolution, but I would really like to try to figure out what the village can do if there's a complaint process, right? So if people are offending, you know, if we have this resolution on the table. Can residents, you know, I think we did set up, Tyler, something on our website where if residents had complaints about businesses or things happening in the community, they could write to the village, and then we can kind of examine those repeat offenders. And that's something that I'd really like to look at, you know, and I don't, you know, I know that digs down a little bit deeper, but if a business is a repeat offender after this resolution and people are complaining, on a daily basis, then I think we could take steps to look into that business and to ask them and to educate them and potentially, you know, pull permits if need be. But I do think I would be in line with the resolution, something that's a little bit stronger than just the advisory.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I'm in agreement with, I tend to be in agreement with what Trustee Warren laid out. I mean, we do need to take this seriously, and we do need to be able to adjust to this constantly evolving situation. I mean, at my own employer, we've had a mask mandate back in place for some time now, when in the office, when indoors. And, you know, we announced today that we're mandating vaccines. So, I mean, I think it's, you know, important that we show some leadership in taking this situation as seriously as possible. Thank you.
Since we have a motion on the floor, I'd like to ask the makers of that motion if they would like to amend it or withdraw it, or we should take a vote and see where we land.
I guess I have a question. So if we approve a resolution, what difference does it make? If you say you encourage versus a resolution, so we think the word resolution has more strength and power and we're making a stronger statement. I think to all intents and purposes, what difference does it make besides one is the word resolution and one is the word encourage? In the actual operationally, what's the difference? To the people,
Tyler,
people who don't want to vote to encourage, why operationally, what's the difference? Is there no difference? It's just the force of the word.
Yeah, Trustee, I understand your question, Trustee Stokerbrand. I think the one thing we could do is we could send that resolution out in our communications. While with the current motion on hand, I mean, we would just copy and paste what the motion was. But we would be able to provide the document in our communication showing the action that the village took. We could also forward that to the bid. I don't know what the bid plans on doing as far as modifying their signs that they have sent out to the businesses, but another option is to have that resolution on hand if they wanted to emphasize that action that the board took. So it just gives us another supporting document for the community to show that decision.
But I think to your point, Trustee Stokebrand, is that, you know, a resolution in and of itself may not make an impact, but it's what we do with that resolution and how we package it with different types of communication strategies and outreach and engagement that can make. I guess I would like to see whether we're going to move ahead with this motion or not.
I see Trustee Baldoff has her hand raised.
Okay, I just want to note we're starting to go around again. So keep in mind that we do have a motion on the floor. Trustee Baldoff?
I was just gonna say, and I think you addressed part of it, President McCaig, just, a resolution to me is a, more formal statement of the board and the village's values and intent for, on this issue, just like when we have a proclamation recognizing an important date or person or moment. I think it's just a more formal communication that is something that people in the community can recognize. So to me, that's a difference.
I will withdraw my motion then.
Okay, Trustee Bockhorst, do you second?
Sure, I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you. I think I was just about to say it didn't sound like you had the votes to pass that. So is there another motion?
I can take a shot at this one.
Trustee Warren.
Sorry, I'm flipping screens here again. I move to approve resolution 2021-2022. Is that simple?
Second.
Okay, I'd like to add a friendly amendment that we direct staff to work with the bid to coordinate communications and outreach to promote compliance with the resolution.
That sounds good to me.
That sounds great.
Awesome, thank you. Did you get that, Tyler?
I did, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so it is a roll call vote.
Okay. Great. Let's start with Trustee Baldoff.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Trustee Ursing.
Aye.
Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Bockhorst.
Yes.
President McCaig.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0.
All right, thank you everyone for all that discussion and consideration. Moving on to 5C, consider waiving purchase policy and agreement to hire legal counsel for the police commission. There is a memo in our packet this evening that outlines the why this is before us this evening, and it also outlines the reasons for asking us to consider waiving the purchasing policy. I did want to note that when discussing this with Mayor Ewald, and knowing that every point of decision is an opportunity to increase diversity, to Ms. Waite's previous comment. And we really talked through the likelihood of all that. And given that this is a very specialized area of law, and that we really have 2 weeks for the police commission to convene and make decisions to move forward on appointing an interim chief, to handle operations, and then to move forward with the selection of recruitment services and et cetera, and a variety of other things. They cannot do that without counsel being assigned to them, or, that is not what we're recommending at this time. And so that is why this is before us this evening in this for this purpose. Tyler, is there anything you want to add based on Rebecca's instruction?
Nothing to add.
No? Okay. Okay. So at this time, I would, are there any questions and any members of the public who would like to speak on this before I ask for a motion? Trustee Arndorfer?
Thanks. Just for context, I guess how was the process for hiring a chief handled the last time in terms of counsel and other logistical steps along the way. Do we have any institutional memory on that gathered here tonight?
I do. Yeah, I was on the board at that time, and I was chair of the Public Safety Committee. It was a very different situation because Chief Banazinski was a long-serving chief. He planned his retirement, and so the selection process and hiring was coordinated, to a T with that. This is unusual to need to appoint a new chief 6 years after receiving one that's in good standing. So it came up quickly, and so that is a big difference. And historically, to be honest, it's been noted that for some reason the police commission did not have legal counsel assigned, and I think that was negligent in that matter. I mean, I think that is something we should rectify immediately to move forward.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions for trustees? Trustee Stokebrand.
So can someone explain to me what's the worst thing that happens if we delay this for a September meeting and we go out? I mean, I understand an RFP is got a lot of procedural things that will slow it down a lot. And there's nothing, this is binary, right? It's like RFP, which is like a month to 6 week process, if I understand correctly, or get this done tonight. This just seems, is my understanding correct?
I believe those are the two choices. I can defer to Tyler or Attorney Bear on that. I will say that if we make this decision tonight and assign this counsel, it doesn't mean that that's the counsel for the rest of the life of the police commission. We could prepare an RFP and take a different approach after this initial period is complete. So
I guess that's sort of one of my questions, was there was no not to exceed on here and no time limit. And obviously I understand we don't know how long it will take to get a new chief, but I wondered if, people who do this all the time can say, well, you need someone just to get the ball rolling and bring on board a consultant to help you run through the vetting process, right? To do a search. And so could we say, well, we really need to operationally though, like to get someone into the chief of police job before the beginning of September, is that what we're saying here? We need an attorney for the police commission to get someone operationally in charge of the department, or no?
The recommendation is that the police commission should have counsel assigned to them so that when they convene, similar to how we have Attorney Bear at our meetings, they have counsel available to them to navigate the process and decisions like closed session and other types of procedures that they need to take on and what their choices are.
So it's not just about choosing a new police chief, it's a lot more.
It's that it's appropriate for the police commission, since they are a quasi judicial body, just like the Plan Commission, Board of Appeals, the Village Board. And so it's appropriate that they have legal counsel present when they are convening their meetings.
And so this would be, at this point, a contractual agreement with no end in sight. But we could, at a certain point later, I'm sure the contract says within 30 days or something, right? Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Warren.
Yeah, kind of building on Trustee Stokebrand's points. I want to just tell you how I understand this, Tyler, and make sure it's right. What I'm viewing this as is kind of almost an emergency type hiring. I don't view this as this, and tell me if I'm wrong, like when we contract with Attorney Bear's firm, we contract for, I think it's 2 or 3 years, and Attorney Bear's firm is going to represent us for the span of those 2 or 3 years. What I view this proposal as is we hire Attorney Zach to sit in on police commission meetings until we go to RFP. That is, we can say we can have him sit in on 1 meeting, we can have him sit in 5. We don't have a minimum there. We have we know that he is representing us. There's a letter of engagement, but we don't have this contract that has kind of either an indeterminate sum of time or 2 years or 1 year. It's really a kind of almost day-to-day contract where if we stop using him, we can prepare an RFP and stop using him at any time. But we just need this for emergency purposes. Is that right, Tyler?
Yeah, that'd be correct. So I don't know if anyone wants to include in the motion, if you want to just make it clear that the village still, goes through an RFP process for long-term, legal counsel services for the police commission. I mean, that could be something you include in the motion. And then President McCaig, I do want you just to let you know that Rick Cole has his hand raised. So to these questions, I don't know if he has any specific comment, but as the chair of the police commission, he may have one or two things he would like to add.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. If there aren't any other specific questions from trustees, I would invite Mr. Cole to share his point of view as president of the police commission.
Hello. I saw some other hands raised. I wasn't sure. I just wanted to make sure I waited. As it relates to having legal counsel for the police commission under these circumstances, as a newly elected to the president of the group, as it relates to learning the ins and outs of it. Our last joint meeting made it very apparent that this board has specific responsibilities and that there's been some discussion about what's outside of that group's responsibilities. We should have legal counsel to help us with that, to make sure we're staying in that process. The other part is that a chief hiring process is going to be a significant undertaking, but there's a number of things that have to happen with the department, including the officer hiring process for openings, potential sergeant promotion during a short time period, and then the chief. And it would be of great interest and help to be able to make sure that we've got somebody meeting with us that is knowledgeable in these things, so that it's not a question about what's legal, what's not legal, et cetera. It would facilitate the meetings, and it would actually probably make whatever actions much more well-informed. That's all I'd like to add.
I'll also add that there is a complaint in that is waiting to be disposed of before the police commission, and they need a legal opinion as to whether it is under their jurisdiction or not. So there are kind of a couple things on queue that need legal opinion. So Ms. Wade, I saw that you had your hand up. You spoke earlier in the meeting. Do you have something that's to add?
Yes.
Otherwise, we can take your comments from earlier in the meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm at an airport, so there might be a lot of background noise. But I wanted to just reiterate, not only was the request to have a lawyer for the police commission brought up earlier, it was brought up in October of last year. In addition, in terms of Chief Nimmer leaving, this isn't something that urgently happened overnight. We were aware that he had applied, was pursuing with someone else a position with Brown Deere over 2 months ago. So for us to be in this rush position with the lawyer that presented what was positioned as training at the August 2nd meeting, that to me was not, was just a way to continue with the status quo of not making change in policing at Shorewood is beyond negligent. So whatever decision is made here today, this is a pivotal point. And for everyone that stood behind the movement of Black Lives Matter, and then you stand today and just say, well, let's just go with what we need to go with. It boggles my freaking mind. as to how we could be in this position of a rush decision when this was well known long ago. And that's the end of my statement.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, are there any other members of the public that would like to be heard? Ms. Fukuza?
Yes, I would like to just agree with what Michelle is saying, that I don't think this should be a rush decision. I think this is a really important pivotal point where we can help increase policing in Shorewood and increase equity, and that I don't think this should be a rush decision.
Thank you. Trustee Bockhorst?
Thank you. So I'm glad that we are hiring legal counsel for this, and that's all we're discussing tonight. I will say that I think you've all been, I'm assuming that you've all seen the news and seen what's happened in Milwaukee and the, almost upwards of $1 million that the city had to expend based on some decisions that were made surrounding the former Chief Morales. Now, I know this is quite different, but I feel very confident spending this money as a municipality in order to ensure that we can mitigate and prevent, hopefully, some lawsuits and other kind of legal action. By state statute, by ordinance, and by the police commission will be performing the duties that is, their number one primary duty, which is the hiring and firing of the chief of police. So that's what we're being asked tonight, is to agree on for hiring this attorney who has been vetted, who we've all seen, that we've all read the packet. And anyway, so I'm ready to vote yes on this tonight. So I see Melissa has her hand up. But
Trustee Baldoff?
Yes, I just, wanted to talk about what are we going to commit to an RFP process if we need to make this emergency hire, for lack of a better way to describe it. I do think that we should go through an RFP process. I had a family emergency and was not at the August 2nd meeting, but I have heard from a number of residents about the meeting, and that they had concerns with this attorney. So I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to, make sure that we have the right counsel for this commission. I do agree that it's important to have counsel. And I guess my other question is, what does it do to our ability to search if we, hit the pause button on this? Is the department not able to function without a chief that long? I mean, because we could be in a process where we start the search and we don't find a chief for 6 months. We could be in a rush to bring on this counsel to start the search and then still be without a chief for 6, 7, 8 months. So I guess my question is just, what is, if we don't, go forward with this decision tonight, what would happen?
I'll let Tyler respond to some of that from an HR perspective, but let me be clear. This is not as much about hiring a chief as convening the police commission. I would not recommend that they convene without legal counsel present, and without assigning legal counsel, they will not have that. And if they don't convene, they can't address the complaint that's before them. They can't appoint an interim chief. They can't approve an RFP for search and recruitment services. They can't hire to fill vacancies that are currently, I think we have 3 vacancies in the police department, not including Chief Nimmer. So those are all things. They can't address promotions. So that's all current business that needs to be done by a quasi-judicial body, and they need to have legal counsel available present when they do that. So, and I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance, to watch the recording of the presentations, and because it must be pretty confusing to get that feedback.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to yet, but I certainly will. So yes.
I understand. Yeah. Tyler, do you have anything to add from, and perhaps Attorney Bear or Mr. Cole do too? I don't know.
I think the only thing I'll add is if we end up saying no and need to take this back to the board, it would be clarity that are you asking staff to reach out for another immediate attorney that isn't Attorney Zach, or would you be wanting us to start the RFP process for one and not having the police commission meet until then? Just know that an RFP process takes about 3 months from start to finish. So that would be the action or that would occur if we did RFP and the police commission couldn't meet until then. So that would just, this is voted no, we would just need that guidance from the board. Otherwise, I don't have anything else to add.
That means we're willfully leaving the police department in limbo for 3 months. Trustee Warren?
Oh, thank you. Just very briefly, I agree with Trustee Baldoff that if we approve kind of use of counsel on an emergency basis tonight, I would like the RFP appended to that in the motion. I think it's important that we RFP this and that we see what else is out there. But I do understand some of the pressing priorities to get things done. The other thing I would say is that I view counsel's role on this, to be clear, as advising on procedure and process and making sure those are bulletproof, as opposed to helping to drive policy or anything like that. That should be a police commission decision, what policy is. Counsel should be advising on making sure that we, as we run the meetings, is going into closed session appropriate? Are we following all the appropriate policies and procedures, administratively, to get our work done? But counsel should not in any way be driving policy. So that's my view of it. Just wanted to chime in.
Yeah, and also the police commission doesn't set policy, the village board does. So we still have that separation. Tell me who other,
So President McKeag, to help you out, Donna Pollock is raising her hand and Michelle Waite has her hand raised.
Okay, Ms. Pollock?
Yes, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I am concerned that we're not doing an RFP. I think it is important, especially after listening to the presentation by Attorney Zach. I think for me personally, I think it's really important to have a different counsel because some of the information Attorney Zach gave did not seem like he was in favor of expanding the commission's role. And so I'm concerned about that, but also I think because I think it's a really good policy to have an RFP, to look at all the different options we have. And secondly, I'm listening to you and you said there's a complaint. So I'm not understanding what complaint do you have that is pressing right now for the police department or the commission? I'm not understanding.
Yeah, I don't have any comment on that.
Okay, so, I'm not sure that it's the chief, hiring a chief that happens to be the pressing issue, but it may be a complaint that could be pressing this quick hire of an attorney. And I as a resident, I'm looking back at like Robert Surdick. I don't ever remember hiring a separate counsel for the police commission during that time. And that was kind of a mess. So I'm concerned about this rush and the idea that we have to push this through tonight. So as a resident, I really do object. Thank you.
Oh, it looks like President McCaig's frozen in time. There you are.
Sorry, I see hands up from Ms. Spikuza and Ms. Waite. Typically, when we hear from residents, we ask that they speak once, and so that the board can move through the business. Is there something that you need that you have not already said?
Just that I also feel uncomfortable with the attorney that presented the following meeting as a community member.
Trustee Stokebrand has her hand raised.
Okay, Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you. So this, I guess do we need to see a CV for Attorney Zach? So this gentleman comes highly recommended, is that correct, by the Wisconsin League of Municipalities? And I'm just wondering, if we go for an RFP, we're going to need someone from the state, right? A state attorney who's familiar with Wisconsin law and this specific area. So how big is the pool? Do we know?
I can't speak to how large the pool is, but I do know that he has presented a number of times specifically on police commission related topics at the state level. So I know I believe that's how Rebecca got his name and contact information.
Okay, and in my short time on the board, I would say I have had a very good experience with Wisconsin League of Municipality in terms of their professionals and people they brought in for programming I've been involved in. Again, I guess I just want to be very clear, operationally, how critical is, so the police commission does not feel comfortable meeting again without counsel. That's correct. So what issues, so they've met 3 times a year, but now obviously we need a chief and there are promotions to deal with and jobs to fill. So we would put on hold hiring, promotions for 6 months until we did the RFP. So we'd have no interim chief. Is that correct? I just need to know specifically what jobs would we not fill? If the police commission won't meet without legal counsel, what will not happen operationally that I need to know before I vote?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few HR processes going through. I mean, they're also going through hiring a police officer right now. So that would be another, we've been focusing on the command positions and the interim chief, but there's also a current police officer position that they're going through that they would need to meet to consider and approve that hire. So yeah, there's a number of staff implications that if they did not meet, it would cause it would be a difficult transition without that. So, that's why I raised the question that for the board, if you didn't approve this tonight, the 2 actions that you would need to let the village staff know is either A, finding a different attorney for those temporary services and revisit at a later agenda, which would delay our process, 2 to 4 weeks. Or the other option would be to start the RFP process, and that's where you would see some major delays in our police hiring and recruitment process throughout the department.
And so if Chief Nimmer is gone on August 30th, who's interim chief if the police commission doesn't say you are interim chief? What happens to the chain of command?
Well, right now, Lieutenant Liebenthal has been acting as the acting deputy chief captain. So he would be the highest in command, but he wouldn't. Yeah, unless the police commission met, we would have no one that would receive the title of interim chief.
And legally, would that put us in a compromised position?
Well, in a department where you want, that chain of a command established, I don't know if that would necessarily be how we would want to set up the transition. But, once again, I would defer to our chair of the police commission, Rick Cole. Rick, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I can tell you with several other municipalities, it's, I haven't seen a process since I've been in the state that didn't appoint an interim chief. So that would be kind of a new precedent that we would be establishing there.
So we'd have an acting deputy captain instead of an interim chief.
Yeah, unless the police commission met to establish, who that individual would be.
Thank you.
So. President McCaig, just to help you out, Rick Cole is raising his hand and Trustee Bockhorst is raising her hand.
Okay. I'll call on Mr. Cole and then Trustee Bockhorst, and then I would like to check in with the board to see if there's a motion, if anyone would like to make a motion. Mr. Cole?
Yes, ma'am. I guess the necessity for doing this soon has more to do with the decisions, the interim decisions that need to be made and need to be made with the proper guidance. In the last 6 years, we haven't had to make these sorts of decisions, and there's intense public interest. So we should do it right. I understand that there's an RFP process, and just because you've had an attorney for one meeting or a few meetings doesn't mean we have to necessarily stay with that particular attorney. But right now, we need some guidance, and somebody knows how those statutes operate, how they should operate, so we can function appropriately. And then I agree with Trustee Warren that the attorney in this circumstance is guidance for how the meeting should run, how the process should start, et cetera. It's going to be the police commission's job for how to follow the process once we've got an idea of what the guardrails are. Thank you.
Trustee Bockhorst, would you like to make a motion or do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I was looking for the motion, but I can't find it. So, but I just want to agree that the police commission is asking for this. We have a lot of important business. This is an attorney, not a policy maker. This is someone to offer legal guidance. We want to avoid lawsuits. There's a lot of public interest, as Mr. Cole mentioned, as well as it is a different time. This is a very vetted person and organization. And as the past president of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, I'm going to thank Kathy for what you said earlier and also agree. That organization's sole mission is to assist municipalities across the state of Wisconsin in legal and other avenues. And we are a member, a paying member, as are the 600 and some municipalities across the 72 counties in the state. So I don't have the motion in front of me, but we need to vote on this.
Trustee Bockhorst, it's on page 49 of your packet, or might be on page 50. I think the memo is 2 pages long.
Sorry, I minimized the Zoom to get to it. So now, okay, it is, I thought the motion was a different motion though. Okay, this has to do with the recording of the meetings. No, sorry. Here we go.
Apologize.
I move to waive the purchasing policy and approve legal agreement with Attorney Zach for the police commission.
Would you like to add and direct staff to prepare an RFP process? How would we do that?
Okay, and direct staff to prepare an RFP process. I mean, do we want to say if this were to exceed? I don't know how to state that. I'll ask for some legal advice on that.
Yep.
Glad we have an attorney on the line.
Trustee Warren, do you want to add,
Yeah, I would say
try at that since?
and direct staff to prepare an RFP process at their earliest convenience for such legal services.
I guess I'm confused by that motion, but
Okay, you don't have to make that motion if you don't want to. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth.
I would get rid of the second part and just go with the original motion and amend it, because I guess I don't really understand how that is congruent.
I think if I may, I think what they're trying to do is say Attorney Zach would be, since they're asking for legal counsel now, Attorney Zach would fill that void, but you're still directing staff to do an RFP process for who would be your more permanent legal counsel for the police commission. So in this motion, it would be interpreted that Attorney Zach would be your temporary immediate until that RFP process is completed.
Yes, that's what I meant.
I'm good with that.
So does that mean we have a motion by Trustee Bockhorst, seconded by Trustee Warren? Is that how I'm interpreting?
Unless Wesley, you want to take it, I'll second it.
No, I'll second you. I think you're the original motion maker, so.
All right, whatever.
Not that it makes a difference.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion from the board? I'm closing public comment now that we have a motion. Nope. If none, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Bockhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Trustee Baldoff.
I'm going to abstain from this since I have not seen the meeting from August 2nd, and I just don't feel like I have enough information still.
Okay. Trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
President McKay.
Yes.
Motion proves 6-0-1 with Baldoff abstaining.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. It was a good discussion. Moving on to our final item 5D, consider amendment to policy number 32, video recording public meetings. So this is before us because there was a request to record police commission meetings. Since that type of meetings of that body were not identified in our original policy, we need to amend the policy. We are staff and the new police commission chair are in support of recording such meetings. And there is enough in your memo, it describes, possible shortage of server capacity. But for the short term, address that, and then technical capacity will be increased in the 2022 budget, through the 2022 budget. I'll ask if Tyler has anything else to add at this time, or if Mr. Cole has anything to add.
Nothing to add, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Cole, do you have anything to add pertaining to this item?
I do, ma'am. Noticing and being new in this particular role and speaking to people in the community that I know of, there's an intense public interest. Given the intense public interest, it would only make sense to create a record of what occurs in that open meeting. And it makes too much sense. I know the request had been made previously. I was not in any position to even be asked at that point. I would just ask you to do it.
Trustee Stokebrand?
I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready to entertain one.
I would welcome that.
I move to amend policy 32, video recording public meetings, to include recording the police commission and provide minutes reflecting motions and results thereof for the police commission.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by trustee Stokebrand, seconded by trustee Warren, as presented in the packet. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. Okay. If not, let's take a roll call vote on that, please.
Sure. Trustee Ursing,
Aye.
trustee Bachhorst,
Yes.
trustee Ardendorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
trustee Baldoff,
Aye.
President McKay.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0.
Okay. Our final item tonight is adjournment. And before that, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for the discussion this evening, and also for, as you can see, a few of these agenda items reflect community interest and requests. And I know that it takes us a while to work through those things and to get them on the agenda. And it's listening doesn't always mean agreeing, and sometimes the outcomes aren't as one would wish, but I do appreciate the community that is so engaged that they keep at it and bring these things to our attention. So it is a collective effort, and I want to say thank you for that. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Tyler, you'll have to figure that one out.
I got Tammy or trustee Bachhorst making the motion, second by trustee Ursing.
Okay, sounds good. All those in favor, say aye, raise a hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, thank you very much, everyone, for your time and service this evening. We'll see you on the 8th.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.